So, growing businesses with global voices. I'm excited to introduce again another phenomenal entrepreneur. Today we have Lucy Lee, managing attorney at Fallon, Bixby, Cheng and Lee. We're going to talk about how we up level with global voices. We are now a global community. This is what COVID did. This is one of the good things that came out of it. We are now more one than we are separated. How do you build your business? By including those voices in. The show starts now. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paula Mattisonsierra. I'm the owner of Power Marketing SF in San Francisco and the host of 10 at 10 every Thursday at 10 a.m. Or unless we had a glitch with Joe DeLucci last week, hopefully you'll tune in for that one because he has a lot to say about growing with just great people. So this morning we have with us Miss Lucy Lee. She's a managing attorney at Fallon, Bixby, Cheng and Lee. Good morning, Lucy. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Morning, Paula. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Lucy and I are what we call birthday twins. Our birthdays on the same exact day. That was our bonding moment. We're like, oh my God. And just a great energy and just tons of knowledge and experience. You want to be around people like this and have them in your network. So I'm excited that you're on the show today. So I'm just going to jump right in because
Right.
there's a question I love asking entrepreneurs this. When you were a little kid, did you want to be an attorney, a business owner? Is this something that you thought about at an early age?
You're going to laugh. I actually wanted to be a fashion designer.
Ooh,
I used to design and make my own clothes and my dolls' clothes and sew clothes for people. And then when I was 8 years old, my dad had someone over at the house. I think they had some business matters and is an attorney. So my dad introduced his children. I'm number three out of six. And when he got to me, he said, "This one is Lucy. She likes to argue." To which then his attorney friend pulled me aside after he and my dad had discussions. And he said, "Have you ever considered becoming an attorney when you grow up?" I said, "No." He said, "You would get paid to argue." I'm like, wow, people get paid to argue? And that stuck in my mind. That stuck in my mind. I didn't always want to be an attorney. At some point, I wanted to be an architect, or a fashion designer still. And at some time in the middle of college, I decided, I think I want to be an attorney. I want to go to law school.
hmm, I love that story so much. We have to talk later. We have to talk later.
Of course, I was always getting in trouble for arguing.
And defending the rights of other people.
Oh yes, we'll talk about that too.
Well, how did you make the decision to do immigration law? There's so many areas you could have chosen. Why this one?
My parents are immigrants, so they immigrated from China after World War II, and they fled. With the changes in the government,
Yeah.
and my dad got on a ship by himself when he was like 11 years old from China and never saw his mother again. I mean, stories like that in your family roots really impact, how you carry yourself, how you think about yourself, and how you're going to affect others in your life. So I never really thought about immigration law. I just knew that when I wanted to go to law school, I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think I want to do something that helps immigrants somehow, or people who don't usually have a voice, and people who don't know our system, people who don't know where to go, what to do. And then when I look back now at my childhood, I was always in trouble in the principal's office because I would get into fist fights. Why did I get into fist fights? I know maybe I'm saying too much. It would
Oh
be
my God.
other kids who are immigrants from other countries,
Yeah.
and they couldn't speak English very well. And guess what? They get picked on and bullied by other kids. for not knowing English, being new immigrants, not knowing their way, and I would take the fight and defend them. So I have like, pulled hair, messed up hair, torn clothes, and I'd be in the principal's office. But it's funny because the principal knew what I was doing. But let me off easy. It was
Well, nowadays
for a
there would
little,
have been a conference, right?
yeah.
Would have done anger management classes
Well,
now.
then I would say, could you please not tell my parents? I'll be in so much trouble for fighting. It says, okay, I'm not going to tell. And finally, it got to a point where he says, I'm sorry, Lucy. It's too many times. I have to tell you.
I'm gonna call them.
So he told my parents, and my mother thought, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with this girl? She gets into these fights with boys. And they're always the boys, usually.
Yeah, well,
And well, guess what my dad did? He listened and he asked me, why are you fighting? Why are you getting in fights? And I tell him why. I said, I'm defending these kids who are recent immigrants and who are getting bullied. So you know what he did? He took a pair of scissors and cut my hair. He cut my long hair short so I could win the fight. And he couldn't. And then he taught me how to punch. So I could always win the fight.
oh my God, we're so
My mama said
similar.
that because he was encouraging me to fight.
I used to get into so many fights too. You wouldn't even, for the same reason. I hate bullies. It just like made me. I bumped into a guy, by the way, in New York City. Just randomly, I'm on the train, and he's like, my family calls me Penny. He goes, Penny, and I'm like, I only hear that name from someone who's from Jamaica, or and and I didn't really know him during school, but he goes, yeah, we didn't, but and so now we're joking. He goes, we knew someone was about to get beat up when you did like this. We're like second grade. He goes, what? He goes, what was that? What was going? And I said, I was trying not to fight. I was trying. Don't do it. Like I'm talking to myself.
You had
Don't hit
self-restraint.
him. Don't hit them. I'm like, oh, I can't stand it. I'm going over there. They're like, someone's getting beat up. We howled on that train. We were just cracking up. He goes, this so made my day. Like he didn't even live in New York. He lived somewhere else, but he was there visiting. We just cracked up. It's like, but yeah, it sounds like we've been on the same goal of defending.
Of defending others.
So the immigration law was a perfect transition
It
for
just turned
you.
out to be a very good feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how long have you? Because I know this law firm that you're with is really it's a very well established firm. How old is your law firm?
So our firm, Fallon, Bixby, Cheng Lee, is the oldest immigration law firm in San Francisco. It was formally established in 1925. That's when it became a business in San Francisco. And I don't even think lawyers back then needed to be licensed by. There was no bar. There was no California bar. They probably just hung up a shingle, literally.
Like
But
I'm
I
an
think
attorney.
the oldest file dated back to 1911. And so
Wow.
I have these leather bound, like old, very old volumes on my shelf to my left, where the attorneys at the time used to record the ships that would come into San Francisco Bay and who were the passengers and the name of the ship and the dates, because it would help to identify where people were physically, because there were no birth certificates back then. So if someone wanted to bring over their child, they'd say, well, where were you when this child was conceived? Were you here? Were you there? And they would have shipping records and record it, and it would coincide with what the ships had. And that's what the government went off of, because there was a lack of records during those times. It's
Oh,
very
wow.
amazing.
That is like absolutely amazing. And so to go this far into your profession, have you had mentors? Um, and how do you go about choosing a mentor for something like this?
Well, I've had different mentors. So I would say, notably three of my, I would say four bosses, previously, they were all my mentors in different ways. And you learn something different from each of them.
Mhm.
I think the first mentor I ever had was my father, because he was an entrepreneur. and he was
What kind of business did your family own?
he he did everything. At one point he was when he didn't own the farm. At one point he ran away from home, and because he got into an argument with his father from Sacramento and ran to Fremont, became a farmer in Fremont. So he worked there, and then he at some point made tofu and bean sprouts. I don't know if that was his own business or someone else's business. And then he had a trucking business. It was called drayage. He would pick up cargo and items from the waterfront and deliver it to merchants, and he would do moving and hauling on the side, and that was his business for like 18 years. And then we had an ice cream store for about 4 years,
Oh,
and we had an overlapping with that, we had a restaurant. He and my mom owned a restaurant, the Pot and Pan, for like almost 20 years, and they were
oh,
so employed.
wow.
And I worked in the ice cream store and the restaurant, so I grew up in that environment and seeing what did they do as entrepreneurs. And he taught me so much, from customer service to what it means when you say the customer is always right, to accounting, to inventory. It's everything. Service. You learn so much.
Can I ask you, is the client always right?
The client is always right in the way that you never put them down. You don't dismiss how they feel.
Mm,
You want to listen, even if they're unhappy or whatever it is, because people have fears and anxieties, and it comes, or they have needs, and it comes out onto you. It's the manifestation of how they feel. So you have to learn not to take it personal, but it is personal because it's your business. So you have to listen, and you have to take that energy and say, okay, how can I help this person so we can turn it around? So for example, on the simplest level, if someone comes into an eating establishment and they're kind of grumpy, they're hangry, they're hungry, and they want to get fed. You want to be cordial. You want to, give them good service. You want to be nice and give them what they want to eat. If they don't like it, ask them why. Can I make you something else? Don't charge them for that dish that they didn't like.
yeah,
Say, how can I have, or if they have a food allergy, accommodate that. I mean, so this is part of it. It's accommodating your clients. So in the legal field, it's the same. Someone could say, I need to talk to you now. I pick up the phone or get on the Zoom and ask, how can I help you? Sometimes I get a pause, like no lawyer ever says that. I'm like, how can I help you?
mm.
And it calms them down immediately because I'm listening. And I say, okay, let's get this out. Okay, let's figure out a solution. We'll do some short-term and long-term planning to help you. And by the end of it, you're usually very happy.
Well, as entrepreneurs, we go through these ups and downs, right? We sometimes even doubt our skills, and our abilities as business owners. Like, what am I doing? How do you overcome this?
Nothing is ever going to be perfect. We learn by our mistakes and by our failures.
Mm,
You learn. And even when you think, having a business and especially practicing law is a very humbling experience, you know, in any career. Because just when you think you know something, things can change. Things can happen beyond your control. So
yes.
in my universe, the law can change, the procedures can change. Um, things, the pandemic happened. And guess what? The government shut down. I mean, all the US consuls and embassies, even the immigration service shut down because everyone was on lockdown. If Congress doesn't pass the budget, Department of Labor will shut down because they're funded by Congress. And
Mm,
then our cases, so everything's affected. So these are things that are challenges that we just have to learn to work with and prepare our clients and ourselves. And it makes us more resilient, but also teaches us to prepare and how to how to approach this in case it happens again. So then it's not as stressful.
yeah. You know, Let me ask you a question then to follow that one. Failures and setbacks, how do you view them? Good or bad?
Of course, everybody wants to not have failures and setbacks. I view them as lessons, and
Mm,
sometimes there's a silver lining in the clouds.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's how I view them.
yeah.
Let
They
me
can
give
be
you.
gifts as well,
They're,
right? I
they're,
mean, it's
they
like,
can be gifts,
yeah,
and then you learn a lot about yourself. You self reflect. when there are challenges and failures and setbacks. You do. You
Mm.
step back, you stand back, and I ask, should I be doing something different? What am I doing wrong? And I do reach out to people around me, whether it is other people here in the office, whether it's colleagues, my husband, even my kids, I do reach out to people and friends. Ask, well, what are you doing? Should I do something different? Is how can I turn this into something positive, or how can I learn from this? So they're not necessarily bad, but I would take them as learning, you know, just learning lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. With all of this, how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance? Because especially over the last couple of years, your area of the law has been interesting. There's been so many changes and so many upheavals. How do you balance it for yourself?
So, the last few years is just, it was very different from everything else any of us have ever experienced. In a way, you could say, when the pandemic happened, I think it was like we all hit the reset button. Because
Mm,
before that, we're all busy, we're running around, and we're just so engaged with work. We're going and running, running, running. And when this happened, it was shut down, and we had to figure out, what do we do? We don't want
mm.
to get exposed, to this deadly virus. We all hit the reset button. And so what happened is we learned new skills. We learned how to work from home. We had things where it's like, oh no, my Wi-Fi doesn't work, or you get cut off, or you find out on Zoom, like, oh no, they can see everything that I'm doing. You just learn. But in a
I love
way,
that men, by the way, totally got into makeup
uh,
during that.
yeah, people walking around behind me, you can tell I'm totally live. But it was, and it was just really hard. It was just really hard. We had people stuck here in the US, people stuck outside the US, people stuck around the world. And I think it's just giving people that attention. But at least we have electronic devices and the technology to deal with communicating with people. And I think communicating became even more important. Whether it was good news or bad news, or to tell people this is what is going on. So so they would have a reasonable expectation of what was going on in the world and in our government and what their case. And in terms of the balance, I got to work from home. I mean, that was great. I avoided a commute, as I drive like at least an hour each way from the peninsula to San Francisco. It was great. I didn't have to worry about traffic. I could dress in jeans or sweatpants from the waist down. I could eat healthier. I had time to exercise. I saw my husband more. We could just chit chat and eat lunch together. It was
And by the
nice.
way, I loved your family on Facebook. I'm just going to say that. If you guys aren't like connected with Lucy, there was like a whole food process. You guys cooking together. I say this to you all the time, but you guys got to do a recipe book because those recipes were amazing. Like the COVID recipe guide, like, this is what came out of it or something like that. Cause it was it was amazing. If I was like in the mood to just look at food, yeah, I could go to Pinterest or the Food Network or whatever. No, I go to Lucy's page and just click through at some of the foods. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. You know?
I would have to measure then to write down the recipes.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. So our topic at the start of the 30 was growing your business with global voices. I wanted to get your opinion on that because we're a country of immigrants. Um, uh, and I would love to hear your opinion on this.
You know, you're right. We are a country of immigrants. The United States is like no other country in this world. And that's what makes us unique. And with that being said, I think our strength and our advantage, economically, culturally, um, everything that we do is affected by immigration. And what people bring to this country, regardless of what they do and who they are, enriches us. And so I'm a big proponent of attracting international funds, investments, entrepreneurs, people with certain talents and skills. This is everything from, chefs that make very specialized dishes, whether it's Peruvian or Afghani or Japanese food, um, or to people who develop technology, like semiconductor equipment technology, uh, using laser equipment to treat COVID, to people in pharmacology that figure out a way to tailor medicine to each person's individual physiological makeup so you heal faster, to the artists who come and they perform or they bring a certain cultural aspect of what they do in the arts that we've never seen or experienced. And it's the fabric of America. It's just what makes it so great to have these different views, and that we're in a well, not really a democracy. We're in a republic. We're in a republic,
Yeah,
right? We
exactly.
elect people to represent us. Yeah, it's like, don't be fooled. It's not a democracy. It's a republic.
It's a
But
little combo. It's a combo of
it's a
complete.
combo of that. It's a combo. But it's
Yeah,
just what makes us fabulous. You and I could be sitting here talking here, and we have the same birthday. We have the spiritual connection.
yeah.
You know, on there was a trip I took to China, and there were rural areas they had never seen anyone who was non-Chinese or non-Asian. So for the people in the group who didn't look like them, they wanted to touch their hair and their skin to see if they were real. They were like, I mean,
I've
anyone
had
known.
that experience.
But I love it. I love that this country embraces that for the most part. And it's always going to be a work in progress. But
Yeah,
that's what makes it so great is that we try to work toward a common goal or toward, coexisting and getting along and having mutual respect. So I'm a big proponent of bringing the world together here.
absolutely. And really that's where we are right now, so why not? I'm always concerned when I go to a company and everyone looks the same. It's like, so all you're hearing is the same
Yeah,
opinion. Sometimes you need that counter for food for thought so that you can come up with something more magical, or else you're not growing and changing, right?
right.
So, how do you stay on top of, again, being a lawyer is one thing. I mean, with all the changing laws, right? But as an entrepreneur, that's a whole nother facet of your firm, right? How do you stay on top of being the best entrepreneur that you can be, and the new concepts that are out there? How do you stay on top of that?
Well, in different ways. So one is, um, in terms of the law itself, and also about running a business. So I read every day. I spend at least an hour, sometimes an hour and a half every day overall reading. It could be everything from updates in law to managing, our Immigration Bar Association, ALO. We share about law office management. We share tips and resources, and that's very great. I read the business section. I read two newspapers every day.
Oh, well.
I read the news and I learn from that. And then I talk to other fellow entrepreneurs and other business people to get ideas and to exchange and say, you know what, I like that. And within our office, I'm not, and even outside of the office, I'm not afraid to ask for help. I'm not afraid to admit I don't know everything. So
Yeah.
I will ask people, what do you think of this idea? I will reach out to, my business manager, my office manager. I will reach out to people and ask, what do you think?
Yeah, that's so important. I think I was sharing a story with you earlier that I went to a networking event, and I was just shocked to hear someone say, with like a little bit of pride on it, that he doesn't read. Like, oh, wow, I need to get away from this person. This is not a person that I need to know past this point, especially in this day and age. It's like that dedicated time. When do you read? Is it mornings, evenings? When's your favorite time of the day to read?
So usually first thing or at some point in the morning, and sometimes I break it up. I do go through the legal updates because sometimes they're effective today or
Oh,
tomorrow.
wow.
I think, oh no, we have to know now. guys, this is now. And then we need to make sure all the tools, everything is in place, all the procedures, that we're not sending stuff to the wrong government office. I mean,
Oh, it changes that
it
much lately?
sometimes it changes that much. You would
Oh my gosh.
never cease to be amazed by how little notice you can get from our government. And it's okay because sometimes they don't know until the last minute.
Oh,
So
man.
it's all right because they, would make their job harder if they gave out late notice. So they try. Um, so I read during the day, and sometimes if I see more during the day, I will I will read it. And then at night, I always read the newspaper at night,
Mhm.
and I read the news. And when I'm in the car, I do listen to news radio, and to hear what's going on in the world, so I can hear it from a different, source and perspective. I don't listen to it the entire commute, but I will listen, to maybe 15, 20 minutes of it because sometimes they tend to repeat.
What's your best advice for someone who comes to you and says, I'm starting a business. I'd like to start a business. I'm thinking about starting a business. What would be your best advice to them? Or if you have a few.
So I would start by asking them why.
Mm,
Why do you want to own a business and run a business? My next question is, what are you going to do? What do you have to offer? What experience do you have? Have you ever run a business? Have you consider, I mean, and I would go through everything. So before I ever bought this firm, I bought this firm a little over 23 years ago. Um, I've been a practicing attorney for over 31 years. When I bought the firm, I mortgaged my house and bought this firm. I mean, it's been paid off for years, but sometimes, early then it was really scary.
yeah.
But my old boss, before, who was the managing attorney back then, before she sold me the firm, she met with me at 7 a.m. once a week for a year to mentor me on how to read financial reports, what to look at, how to know when you're busy, how to spot and cultivate future work. I mean, and how to manage your employees, how to deal with your vendors, how to make sure your bills are unpaid, and on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. I mean, it was all of that. You need to know all of this and not be in for a surprise. And then knowing, if you're going to buy a business, you start up, all your contracts are new. You take over a business, you have to form new contracts with all your vendors, and you have to get a new lease agreement with your landlord.
Mm.
So these are all different items and factors that anyone who wants to start a business should look into.
So
Also,
know why.
what is their funding? What is their money? How much money do you need to run this practice? And do you have other sources of money? Do you have a line of credit? Do you have something as equity you can use if you need to take a loan out? Over the years in running this firm, I've taken out loans over the years. I've survived. I've gone through three recessions now,
Mm.
and things happen. It's part of being an entrepreneur and a business, owner. You need to be prepared and know it's not always going to be, glorious. You just need to know what you need to do to protect your business and your clientele and your employees, so
Mm.
you have longevity.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for that, Lucy. I appreciate
Oh, it's
it.
my pleasure to
Yeah,
share.
thank you for sharing all this invaluable experience of yours. I think, you know, oftentimes people are out there, maybe they're 2 years, 10 years into running, 28 years into running. And one of the reasons I do this show is because I realize you're never too far in to learn, and there's always something that we can get from the hive mind, right?
Right.
So I really appreciate you being on the show today. And guys, if you are thinking about growing your business with those global voices and folks, just reach out to Lucy and her firm. Just do it. You've already heard reasons why you should just do it. So at least connect with her on LinkedIn to move forward. And of course, if you're ready for some marketing, reach out to me as well.
Yes.
My continued mission is to introduce you to everyday experts like Lucy
Thank
and other business owners to just help you up level, with through their sharing. And of course, I offer marketing tips as well. We air every Thursday, 10 a.m. This, by the way, is not a live, gorgeously edited show. This is a live show. I mean, I think you guys saw like a couple of months ago where someone got their Amazon order and had to get up and walk away for a minute. That's a real thing. She's like, "Oh my God, they're gonna leave. I need it. Go for it." It was
That's great.
but this is a life, right? This is
Well,
where we
thank
are right
you.
now. Things shouldn't phase you, right? Things happen.
Yeah, it's
Nobody,
live. Can I share a couple of quotes with the audience before
please
we sign
do.
off?
Close us out with some quotes that inspire you, my dear.
So, two quotes that hopefully will be inspiring. One quote is a quote I've always told my kids. I have three kids in their 20s. Is don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. Think about that. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. The other quote that I live by in my everyday life is by one of my favorite poets, Maya Angelou, who said, "Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it."
Mm.
And I will end with that.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, my dear. I really appreciate you being on and sharing your experience, because I think sometimes folks look at us from the outside and just think, oh, entrepreneurs, everything's fine. And we kind of do too. Like, when people ask us, what do we say? I'm fine. Everything's great. They don't know that we're like a duck on a pond. There's like a million things going on with the little legs, you know.
Yeah, yeah. This is like a marathon that we run every day.
Every day,
It's worth the distance.
and it's a new one every day.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so
Well,
much for
thank
being
you
on the
so
journey.
much. It's
And
an honor to be on your show. Thank you.
thank you, my dear. I appreciate it. Viewers, I really appreciate you as well. You continue to amaze me always. I say it every week, but it really does. I see what you guys are doing out there social media wise. I see the changes that you guys in my network have been making. I really appreciate you and I salute you. Let's just keep moving forward, keep sharing with each other. And thank you so much. And of course, as always, have a great rest of the day. Take care, everyone. Bye. And we're